is about the savings. That Kenyans, we have to learn how to save so that we can help our economy. Right now, our economy is ailing. We are living beyond our means. There's no enough amount of money. And we are going back to the basic where we used to say agriculture is the backbone of our nation. We are going back to production. We are going to help our farmers with fertilizers, with seedlings. We see where we can. And when it comes to revenue collection, he has said that the institution is going to become more friendly so that it can accommodate many people who don't pay their taxes. It has to be coiled in a way that when you see the KRA officials, you don't run away. It is a duty that you are called upon to pay the revenue so that we can be able to pay the recurrent expenditure. Right now, even we are borrowing to pay the recurrent expenditure, which is a matter of paying salaries. So what has touched my heart is we must know how to save. We must know how to correct our revenue so that the current expenditure comes from us, comes from within, and we must go back to the basic. That is production, production, production.
Well, thank you very much. Mheshimiwa, what do you believe of what you take from the president's speech, and has it really spoken to your heart?
Thank you, Hussein Waitan from Mandera East. The president's address has really fallen short of our expectations. We expected him to elaborately come up with a plan where he talks about reducing the inflation rate of now our country and coming up with a proper way of dealing with the living standards of Kenyans. What we came here with is just to talk about the promises. He has been talking about all this long, promises after promises, promises after promises. We expected him to come up with more elaborate policies and plans to convince us as parliamentarians.
So you're not convinced at all?
We are not convinced. In fact, other than small things about maybe the CDF issue, the drought matters. Even the drought issue is not well addressed, because we expect him to come up with a proper plan of how he is going to address the drought situation in most of the counties now, over 23 counties. So maybe we expected him to talk about the cash transfers that are now given to the people.
But the president has said that he will be speaking more as we move forward. Don't you think that is a promise enough, probably for bigger things to come?
When you come to Parliament, address Parliament, this is where you are supposed to convince the leadership of the 290 constituencies. There is no better place than this. We expected him to convince us more, but he has really fallen short of it.
What about the promise of probably moving from a rain-fed agriculture and into irrigation in different parts of this country?
That is proper. We are in agreement. But there are short-term and long-term plans where he can address issues affecting the country right now. But we expected him to address more better and more brilliant, policies than what he did.
Well, the president has spoken about the drought management. Your colleague from Mandera East wants to believe that the president has not spoken and his speech has fallen short of the expectations of most Kenyans. Do you believe the same?
First of all, I want to say that this was a very comprehensive and all-rounded speech. Like Thurman's speech of 1949, it gave a lot of fair deal to the Kenyans. The speech touched on everything we expected for him as a president. He did everything. He did very good. It touched on the Hustler Fund. It touched on housing policies. It touched on taxation. It touched on many other numerous sectors which will benefit the population. It touched on the bottom-up approach as opposed to the trickle-down approach which the country was operating with. But I want to say that on the question of drought, we expected the president to declare drought as a national disaster. He fell short on that. Other areas which he has not touched is areas on education. We have not seen the president speaking anything concerning education. It's a vital sector which we expected him to address. Other aspect I wanted the president to address is the question of contractors in Kenya have not been paid. They owe the government a lot of money and they have not been paid. And this will really negatively impact on the economy of our country. We are instead of paying the contractors, we continue giving new jobs. Like, when you see yourself in a hole, you must stop digging. We continue digging the hole, and this will have a great impact, negative impact on the economy of this country.
Thank you very much. Mheshimiwa from Limuru, yes. How are you and what do you take of the president's speech?
First of all, I'm very grateful for the speech. It was brief, to the point. The president mentioned most critical things, that this economy is not doing well, that we have to do a lot to get it working. He has mentioned on the measures that we can take to ensure that this country starts saving for itself, that we cannot continue relying on borrowing, and particularly on current expenditure. I believe that his bottom-up economy, he has already outlined how he expected to work and how he wants us to help. So I believe that we are on the right track. I know that we have a lot of work to do, but I believe there is future for this nation. We need to be honest with ourselves that there are many people who are currently suffering, not having enough to eat, no employment, and all together, if we work together, we can get this country working again.
Well, Mheshimiwa Osotsi, Senator for Vihiga, what do you make of the president's speech?
Well, for me, I listened very keenly to that speech, and I can say it was disappointing and below my expectation as a member of the Senate. Why am I saying so? Because we expected the president to tell us a lot more about how he's going to deal with the cost of living. You remember cost of living was one of his petty subjects during the campaigns. So we expected him to say how his government is going to deal with the problem in a specific manner of cost of living. Secondly, the president appeared to be making fresh promises. You see, he talked about adding more money to NSSF. I feel NSSF is in a chronic condition. There is a lot of corruption at NSSF, a lot of misinvestment at NSSF. I think the priority is to deal with that before you commit Kenyans into investing more money into NSSF, because that becomes a pitiless latrine where Kenyans are going to waste more money through corruption.
Just before I let you go, there is one thing that the president has spoken, and I don't see you faulting. And you, as senators, are going to be given an oversight fund. Do you still think that that is an overwhelming statement or an underwhelming statement from the president?
Well, one thing I want to agree with the president. First of all, he has acknowledged that BBI had some good provisions. Because you remember, CDF and Oversight Fund and World Development Fund were in BBI, which he vehemently rejected. Even the issue of ministers coming to answer questions in the House was in BBI. He rejected it. Now he's telling us to go to the standing orders. Standing orders is unconstitutional. For ministers to appear in the House, we must have substantive constitutional amendment. So welcome to the process of constitutional amendment, which you rejected and even said that in your administration, you will never even touch a comma in the constitution. Now the president, reality has gotten him, and now we want to see how he's going to initiate the process of constitutional amendment, which us on this side of Azimio pushed for.
Thank you very much. Mheshimiwa Kawaya, I see you even donning the yellow, the yellow tie to signify that you are in consonance with what the president said. Is there any iota that you do not agree with what the president said today?
Not at all. Of course, there are a few things he could have spoken about, like the fate of CBC, because I know many parents, there is a quagmire around the CBC. But the other things he spoke about, I think the speech was short and sweet, addressed a number of issues in a compact manner, and I think he has lived to his bill. He spoke about independence of the judiciary, independence of the parliament itself. You've seen in the past that parliament has been used to rubber stamp things from the executive. And from his speech, you can tell that he intends to allow parliament to do its work. You've even also heard him talk about oversight fund for the Senate. And he has also given us a clear indication of where we are as an economy. We are living beyond our means. And of course, we can't expect the president to overturn things in a day. In fact, when you get married, you can't start getting babies the following day. There has to be some amount of time that we have to give him to do his work. Part of it is also to engage Parliament so that we also support him with the legislations that he feels are important for him to be able to do the transformation. Part of that he's spoken about is universal health care, that there is no way a member of Parliament should be paying 500 for NHIF when the Mamamboga and Boda person is paying 500. We have to pay based on our income. He also spoke about our saving scheme, and he wants to encourage us to save because it is for our own benefit. This is not a tax. If you pay 200, I mean, if you save 200 shillings, I mean, in 30 years, you've only saved 70,000, which can't help you. In my mind, we expect a legislation that is going to be brought here by the executive so that we consider it, so that we can also look at how do we change a bit on how we save so that at least Kenyans can safeguard their future. In summary, I think the speech was good. It addressed a number of issues. There are a number of issues that were left out, which were, of course, spoken about during his inauguration speech. And in summary, I think it was a job well done.
Well, was it a job well done?
4 out of 10. Because we already, as you are aware, we are already in the 100 days of President Ruto's time. What I expected myself, which is critical today, is how to lower the cost of living, which is the biggest problem. No food on the table. Parents can't afford fees. You and I can't afford fuel. So that should have been the mode here. Secondly, you can't talk about saving when people can't afford a living. You save what you have. How do you save what you don't have? People don't have. They want to have before you save. So we should be talking on the how we will get people to have some money for them to be able to save. Thirdly, Omwami, I'm very worried that the president's advisors do not know that you cannot use standing orders to bring a minister on the floor of the House. It is a constitutional issue. The making of the 2010 Constitution separated Parliament from the executive. And that's what it is. He now wants a mixed breed. He refused BBI. That's the only one which was creating a mixed breed. It's not doable.
Well, those are sentiments with regards to what President William Ruto has done and what he intends to do, as he now gives him a 4 out of 10. But on this other side, there are members of parliament interacting with the president and also others who are, what do we call it? They are having a meal. Some of them are even going as far as where the president is, just to have a word with him and all that, even as they wait for this particular session to end. And I'm looking for my colleagues whom we were with, as we also try to see on that end. We can see there is some activity, some of the leaders of these two houses as they interact. And also, as they hear from the president, we can see a number of them where the president is interacting, and there is the Prime Cabinet Secretary, that is Musalia Mudavadi, and a number of the leadership of the Kenya Kwanza Brigade, even as they come here. Well, I see Mheshimiwa Ndindi Nyoro, Kiharu Member of Parliament, Ndindi Nyoro, who is here. Probably we could get a view from him. And well, Mheshimiwa, how are you? You're one of the people that I have spoken to every time the president has come to address the nation here in Parliament. today is the time for President William Ruto. How different is it this time round?
Mureithi, I'm sure you listened to His Excellency the President. The speech was short, precise, but also meticulous. It was a very practical speech on the things that he has been able to achieve so far, and we are very optimistic that for sure Kenya is on the right track. He talked about the debt, which is a very weighty issue in our economy. He talked about the issues of farmers and all the other issues that we promised to the Kenyan people. Everything is incremental and everything is gradual, and we are hopeful that for sure Kenya will be a different place in all areas. We have a very hard-working president, we have a very meticulous president, we have a very forward-looking president, and above all, a person who knows what the common mwananchi goes through. Because all his life, schooling from basic to higher, has been in Kenya. He's a real Kenyan president, and today's speech was very good.
There is the question that has come up, and it is the question on saving, where President William Ruto has been very keen on, and this is the question of saving. But however, there are those members of parliament who say that the financial troubles the country are in right now, the most important is to put something in your pocket, then create time to save. Is that the reality, or we can still do both at the same time?
Mureithi, you know, the truth of the matter is that if you do a comparative analysis of Kenya and other countries, you realize that the money that we borrow as a country, what we call external debt, most of this money is actually borrowed from either saving schemes of other countries, like our current NSSF, even our current NHIF, the consolidated funds. And therefore, when you encourage saving in a country, you create a pool of resources that can be actually spent internally. Just to give you an example, if our NSSF had enough resources, they'll actually be able to build even such a project like the expressway. We pay them toll so that even the Kenyan shilling gets another Kenyan shilling. Now what we have in the current scenario is that maybe a dollar or a yen is getting a Kenyan shilling. That is how important saving is in terms of the macroeconomy of our nation.
Thank you very much. Well, Ben, I'm being told to get back to you, even as we continue to listen to more of the views of members of parliament, even as they insist that this day has been one of those, Ndindi Nyoro insisting that the president's speech has captured everything that they wanted. You could say a word, even as we also speak to the senator for Nandi. How was the president's speech for you?
Thank you. There are a couple of things and a number of things that were very encouraging. While there are more that I was hoping to hear, especially this issue of fuel and the subsidy. Kenyans are really struggling, and so even as we look at the long term in terms of production, Kenyans would really like to know how this is going to go down. Secondly is the issue of CDF, NGCDF, which is a very good thing, and I'm happy to hear that the President and the national government are ready to work to ensure that as members of parliament we do get CDF so that we continue serving Kenyans.
Well, Senator, how was the president's speech?
I think it was short and precise, and he talked to Kenyan issues, more so the issue of food security, cost of living, his legacy in terms of universal health coverage, the issues of savings, and I think this is the future we want. I think the president said that they will be having issues that will ensure they put in place and focus on the economy. So I think that largely the speech of the president has shown what he wants to engage Kenyans with. And what is important, has emphasized the issue of oversight and accountability. And I think that one will allow parliamentarians to do their oversight and accountability without fear from reprisal that we saw. All and large, the issue of public debt is a great concern. I hope the president can come up with proposals and pragmatic issues on how to resolve the issues of public debt that is getting out of control.
Do you think it was the right decision to give parliamentarians an oversight fund?
It's actually not parliamentarians, it's the senator. I will be honest with you, Mureithi. Personally, I've done a letter this afternoon to the Speaker, whereby I'm seeking to amend the Constitution to entrench CDF in the Constitution, to entrench USO fund into the Constitution, to entrench GAF fund into the Constitution, to entrench youth fund in the Constitution, and to entrench Senate Oversight Fund in the Constitution. Why? Because as a senator, you must have resources to go and oversight your county. The biggest problem we are complaining about counties is because there is very little oversight. And you know very well, senators are the high to oversight counties. So for me, from where I'm seated, it's not only because of the speech of the president. Personally, I will share with you the letter itself, whereby we are seeking to amend the constitution, and I believe it will get full support of all the members.
Thank you very much. Well, I'm also on this other side looking for my colleagues, Duncan Haemba and Vincent Oduor, just trying to get what this has been all about, even as President William Ruto now says that it is more about what the government needs to do. And probably, Vincent Oduor, you've also gotten views from the different members of parliament who are speaking to you. And what is this thing that is coming out strongly about the president's speech?
I think one of the things that has come out really strongly when you talk to a number of several members of parliament is the position by President Ruto that he will ensure they're able to align, CDF with the constitution so that it continues to exist. Because, most members of parliament maintain that CDF is very crucial, especially when it comes to community development, and they've been relying on this fund to be able to issue, bursaries to their constituents, and also to be able to fund a number of community development projects in their constituencies. And also this issue that came up about the Senate Oversight Fund, because most of them are saying these will empower financially the senators to be able to have resources to be able to oversight the county governments, because there's no way, they're arguing that there's no way a senator will be told to oversight a county that is being given, let's say, maybe 10 billion shillings, and yet they have not even funds to even facilitate their movement, facilitate their oversight activities, including even investigations. And therefore, those are the things that seems to have excited the members of parliament, and they are looking forward to really make sure that that comes to pass. I don't know from your side, what else again really stood out when you having talked to majority of them?
Well, there are different views that have come up with regards to this president's speech. There are those that believe, and those in the opposition, and Azimio One Kenya believe that it was completely underwhelming. There are those in the Kenya Kwanza team that believe that the president spoke very well, and it was very important that he does so. But however, we are still keeping tabs, and we'll be giving you more in our subsequent bulletins. But right now, we have to get out of parliament as the party continues, and we go to prepare stories for 7 and 9. Back to you, Ben.
Many thanks, Kennedy Mureithi and Vincent Oduor, part of our team at Parliament Buildings earlier today, giving us wall-to-wall coverage of the President William Ruto's inaugural speech before addressing the Parliament joint sitting of both the National Assembly and the Senate. And of course, he has touched on a number of things in a very short speech, which has elicited mixed reactions. Of course, some members saying it was short and precise and sweet, had everything. Others saying it was too short. They think that he glossed over issues. But of course, just to touch on some of the issues, he said he will push for bipartisan legislative agenda going forward the next 5 years, saying he will have unity, he will seek for unity of purpose as he seeks to, bring business before both houses. Of course, he did talk about him having seeking to have the Parliament make him accountable, executive accountability, did call it. Of course, he says he wants to restore the place of Parliament in the Kenyan democracy. We'll be covering this going forward to see how that plays out. Of course, one of the other things that he did say that his government will seek to find funds every year to power that much talked about Hustlers Fund. Did talk about, of course, reforming the Kenya Revenue Authority, saying that he seeks to rename it into the Kenya Revenue Service to be able to make it more efficient and more friendly to Kenyans. Of course, talked about the NSF deductions, his pet subject over the last few days, saying that he will push on with it, insisting that what is currently before Kenyans is not sustainable. Saving 200 shillings per month is not sustainable. He did also talk about saying So it said that we intend to evolve the social security infrastructure to make more inclusive. Shall be breaking this down for you later on. Of course, some breaking news coming from the Nairobi County Assembly. Let's take you to the County Assembly, where the new speaker is now addressing the House.
Assembly of Nairobi City, that I shall respect, uphold, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the Republic of Kenya, and that I shall do right to all manner of persons in accordance to the Constitution of Kenya and to the laws and conventions of Parliament without fear, favor, affection, or ill will. So help me God.
Live pictures there from the Nairobi County Assembly as the new Speaker Kennedy Okeyo Ngondi has taken his oath of office. He will be serving the County Assembly of Nairobi as Speaker, taking over from Benson Mutura, who was locked out of the race earlier yesterday. To just bring you up to speed with the final tally there, this has been a day-long affair. Kennedy Ngondi of Azimio, of course, he's an ODM MCA, did garner 68 votes, having a slight advantage over UDS Robo, who garnered a total of 55 votes. That was in the second round of voting after none of them was able to garner a supermajority in the first round. Kennedy Ngondi Okeyo from the Azimio coalition is the new Speaker of the County Assembly of Nairobi. He garnered 68 votes in the second round of voting, just about against 55 votes that were garnered by UDA's Robo. So he has taken oath of office right now. Of course, he's signing his tenure to become the next speaker of the county of Nairobi. A county assembly that is seen by pundits to be split right down the middle, but of course ODM and Azimio coalition by extension having the general majority in that county assembly. Interesting, of course, the governor is a UDM member, is of county number 047. Shall be covering this for you to be able to see how Nairobians receive their services. Of course, we are continuing to break down what has been happening today from the County Assembly of Nairobi to the National Assembly, where both houses of Kenya's bicameral parliament were addressed for the first time in this 13th parliament by President William Ruto. We shall be getting deeper into Ruto's legislative agenda, of course, in a week which also saw the president name his cabinet. A very heavy week in terms of politics and governance. We are on hand here on NTV to give you a blow-by-blow account and, of course, deeper insights into this and other issues. Be sure to stay with us in our subsequent bulletins at 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. for more and deeper coverage of this. Of course, on my show tonight, Front and Center, I shall be joined by the CCM party leader, former Bomet Governor Isaac Ruto, political analyst Barack Moluka, as well as lawyer and political analyst Martin Olo, to just give more insights into what has happened today at the floor of the House, and of course give their insights on the President's inaugural cabinet. Stay with us.
Banaras.